Hey everyone, how was your break? Hope everyone had a good stretch. Oh, good, let's get it started. Now, please join us for an insightful panel discussion on responsible AI, how to use generative AI and LLMs responsibly. Today, we are joined by an esteemed panel of experts who are at the forefront of AI and machine learning innovation.
First, we have Jane Fu, an accomplished data scientist with over 6 years of experience delivering cutting-edge machine learning solutions in retail industry, including Fortune 500 companies. Jane's innovative work has earned her multiple award nominations, and we're thrilled to hear insights on responsible AI. Welcome, Jane.
Next, we welcome Shane Zhong, a principal data scientist at Atlassian with over 8 years of experience applying AI to drive measurable business outcomes. Shane's expertise in AI and machine learning will shed light on how we can align AI's potential with responsible practices. Please welcome Shane. Come up.
Last but not the least, we're joined by Priyanka Gawali, the Chief Technology Officer at Uplift, whose focus on creating innovative mobile and web experiences has driven business growth worldwide. Her visionary leadership and passion for intuitive products make her a valuable voice in today's discussion. Welcome, Priyanka.
Moderating this panel will be our very own Geshen Manandar, Senior Software Engineer at Simply Wall Street, who will guide us through this fascinating topic. Please join me in welcoming all our panelists.
Check, is this on? Oh, good. Am I audible? Yeah. Good? Okay. Thank you, Ria and Subi, for introducing all the panelists. I don't need to do that work anymore. That's already something off my list. That's good. Thank you, everyone. There are a lot of people behind this event, some of whom could not be here, but yeah, I want to thank everyone, all the speakers, all the volunteers, and yeah, of course, all the organizers who have put a lot of sweat and blood getting this event done. One thing I'd like to highlight, I think we had more female speakers than male speakers this time as well. I'm saying this, the second time because I said this in June. And I guess, I don't need to introduce the panelists. That has already been done by the amazing MCs, so I can get started. How we want to do this is, first I have some questions. I'll get that to each of the panelists, and then I'll open it to the floor on whatever you guys want to ask. Generally, responsible AI and/or probably other general AI and LLM stuff as well will come through. But my stuff is more related to the responsible AI part. Where do I start? Probably I'll start with Jane.
Sure.
How do you understand responsible AI?
My understanding of responsible AI is related to the contents that the responsible AI generated. For example, like in a real world scenario, we all come from different backgrounds and we all have our personal point of view. And in terms of generative AI, the data that fit into the model are generated by humans, so we all bring our point of view to contribute to the model. And in regards to generative AI outputs, we would like to be more cautious about if there is any bias, like bias related to cultural background or gender, or if there is any harmful information.
Makes sense.
So yeah, that's my point of view of responsible AI.
Sounds good. I guess I'll redirect this to Shane. Should there be responsible AI filters on an LLM? And if yes, then why?
Yep. Could you guys hear me?
Audibly.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, definitely for sure. I think when I view LLM, I treat it as a tool or such as like a vehicle, right? When we have a car, you need to drive responsibly, right? When car is first invented, there's no traffic rules, right? There's no traffic lights, there's no roundabout. there's no pedestrian crossings that cause a lot of harms at the start.
Amazing.
So for AI, it's the same thing. When first LLM builds, there's no regulations, there's no content filters, right? Everyone just created whatever they wanted to do. But that's actually, on the long run, it's actually harm for the society. That's why we have regulations for aviations, we have regulation for pharmaceuticals, we have regulation for drivings, and in the future we should have regulations for AI, because it's not to killing the innovation because of those filterings, but it's more about giving confidence to everyone to use the tools. So I think it's definitely needed just to prevent the harmful or cause harm to the societies. I think, and also it also builds trust to your users, because for Atlassian, we also have our AI bot called Rovo, which can read your Confluence and Jira tickets. And for us, we want to make sure whatever that robot created, we have a filter on top of that to make sure we don't generate harmful content to our users.
Amazing.
So therefore, we also build trust by having this filter on top of the LLM.
Makes sense. I think in case of regulations, some of the countries, or I think even EU has already set up some stuff there. Yeah, as far as I've read that. Yep, the next one I'll probably direct it to Priyanka. What are the dangers of not having any filters on top of a powerful LLM? What do you think?
I think, can you hear me?
Is it mute probably?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Have you unmuted the mic? Like, no, here. You need to unmute it. Just check that it's not in the mute. No, here. There's a up. Yes, there.
Now?
Yes.
Better? Okay, perfect. So what happens if there's no safeguarding, or if the AI that we are interacting is not responsible? How I would like to answer this is the same way when you raise a child. If you raise them without any rules and regulation or instilling any values, then it's the same approach, right? When you're building a platform, you are kind of responsible if something goes wrong. You have the liability for that.
Yep.
Similar to when you raise a child, you want to instill good values so that they become a good person. If something they do is wrong, then somehow the parents are the one who gets the blame, right?
Yeah.
Who are responsible for that. So it's the similar approach, and I feel whatever platform that we build, it has to contribute to the society in a way, and everyone have responsibility from their own end, but whoever is creating things, they have got the main responsibility, without which, I think having Oscar session before ours elaborates a lot more what are the harmful stuff that can have impact in the society and for the generations to come.
Sounds interesting. I like the analogies you guys are using. This one probably to Jane. Do you know that making an LLM over defensive would also cause an issue? Can you think of any examples, or do you think it should not be over defensive as well? So there should be like a Goldilocks situation somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think nowadays we are trying to implement different type of use case, and the level of filter that we build for the use case can be different. Depends on the scenario and how the background how we want to use it.
Yep.
Like, for example, if we want to build a use case for interacting within human resources or hiring process, that we may consider to have more regulation related to human bias, like gender or background.
Makes sense.
But if we have a use case that we want to use it in a more creative type of task, like generating, let's say, content related to traveling, and we want to make it a little bit looser and to be a little bit more creative. And yes, for sure that we will be always have certain level of safeguard on it, but in my opinion, it needs to be designed
Optimally?
Yeah,
Randomly?
yeah, based on the application that we are building.
Makes sense. Yeah, I'd probably direct this to Shane.
Yep.
In your opinion, how can LLMs be made more accountable and socially responsible?
Yeah, I think when I look at accountable, just imagine, step back as what does define accountable person? I think accountable person means you are responsible for your actions and decisions,
yeah.
right? So same for LLM. When LLM give advice or response, it should be responsible for why they give you response. What's the reason of giving a response? So I do really think transparency is important as well as accuracy.
Yep.
For example, accuracy. Hallucination is always a common problem where LLM just make up stories or make up a response or a history that never existed. So those type of events, we need to be cautious and take actions to make sure it doesn't happen.
Makes sense.
We have I remember in last year we have Innovation Week and we try to build an LLM that solve customer problems. So when customer raise a problem, we have an LLM to say, you should do ABC. But what we found is after we train it without proper control of the responses, it actually created a button in a product that never existed before. So to solve this problem, click this button never existed, right? So that actually break the trust and actually is not accountable and people lose trust in the product, in an LLM. So it's really important to make sure if it's about information retrievals, LLM actually give actual responses. Really understand what it doesn't know. So it's actually better when it's outside their knowledge pool to say, sorry, I don't know the answer, rather than making up a story. Similar to a role, if someone asks you a question, to be an accountable person, you can't just make up a story about conclusions, right? So you try to say, yeah, it's outside of my scope, it's outside of my work, just let the other person know. So I think accuracy is important. The second part is transparencies. I think transparency is important because as a data scientist, when I present a model to someone, to my stakeholders, people don't just blindly trust the model. They actually will ask you, what's the rationale behind it? What's the input of your model? So what are the key contribution factors that drive the modeling outcome for machine learning models? Like if you predict a customer going to churn, why they're going to churn, you actually need to explain to the customer, the stakeholders say it's because of certain person take those actions. That's why they're likely to churn. So for LLM, I think it needs the same level of transparencies as well. You can't just be socially responsible, right? When you ask advice to LLM, LLM should refer what kind of data sources it actually give you those results from, right? Rather than just making up a conclusion. It should better to surface the chain of thoughts. Like each chain of thoughts, what are the rationales, why they come up with those conclusions, and what references it actually pointed to. So having that, you have more trust in LLM. When they give you advice or anything, you actually know, they actually quoted from those books or those sources, authors to really, be responsible.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
The next one to Priyanka, I think it'll make more sense because she works at Uplift Food, which deals with recruitment as well. What would be your opinion on how can LLMs be made more inclusive and fair?
Yeah, one of the challenges dealing with LLM is when we offer them the flexibility or the creativity to think on their own, things can go in different direction, right? So in that case, we would need to make sure have safeguarding filters on top of it so that there's no biasness towards gender, towards culture. So we've seen in most of the image generation or facial recognition platform, based on the data they train with, you get that output, right? So I don't exactly remember the company, but one company who are very known for facial recognition, their AI would not work well for people with non-white skin. just because the data that they trained on was fully on white people, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So the way you train the data, it's not something that you deal with once you have released your AI application. It should be from the stage one when you're training the data as well. So there's a few different ways we can make sure it is ethical, it is safe, and the way it communicates to people, it doesn't impact them in a bad way.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think by now I'll probably open it to the floor. Probably we have a couple of mics around. Yeah, anyone who has a question, raise a hand. And if you want to select one of the panelists, it's up to you. Just raise your hand and yeah, ask. Oh, you're going to get a difficult one now.
Oh no.
I already warned you.
One thing I'd like to get clarification on when we are calling for regulation, I worry about regulation being a very blunt tool.
Yeah.
And to me, calling for AI regulation sounds like calling for regulating math, right? I feel like we're missing context and application. So I'd like to get a do-over of the regulation question and see if we can get a little more clarity on exactly what parts of the AI pipeline we need to regulate. Is it the input? Is it data sets? Is it some kind of, I don't know, safety benchmarks that all AI needs to abide to? In which case, say that I'm making my own AI for hobby purposes, and it's just a really crappy AI. Is it now suddenly illegal just because it doesn't pass certain, arbitrary benchmark? In any case, can you please give more clarity on what you would like to see in terms of regulation?
Shane, you don't take
Yeah,
it?
I think one example I can think of is in the future, it'd be great to know if a content, for example, a TikTok or some comments that someone made a review on Google Review, right? You want to know whether that's actually AI generated or not. Because like a recent event, you can have a product and you have a YouTube, then you have a lot of comments say, oh, this is really great. But are they great? Is it because it's AI generated and someone just built the model 24/7 and leave positive outcome for your products? Or is it actually a generated comments that's made by a human who actually properly testing and experiencing that? So I think that's really important in the future to distinguish a content, whether it's generated by AI or not. I think that part is important. Otherwise, how much information we can trust online if we start to, all those reviews that start generated by AI. So I think that part is really important and people should hold accountable for it. So yeah, at least for that part, it'd be great to know in the future if this AI, if this an article is generated by AI or not. Or if there's a real person that you talk to. I think that's quite important. Otherwise, all the internet interactions, you don't know whether it's actually an AI you are talking to or it's actually a real person that you're talking to.
And I would like to add more on that. Just what Oscar shared about how you get output from LLM. Based on that output, you can do comparing between different LLMs. I would like to see more incorporation of human feedback enabled in the reinforcement learning, not just between the LLMs, but having the output maybe could be like a feedback loop, having a human involved in a way to say, yeah, this is what we feel, yes, this is right, or this is no, this is ethical, or this is not, in the approach of the post-release part of maintenance of responsible AI.
Makes sense. Do you have any follow-up question?
So on the first answer by Shane, that sounds like you're now asking for regulation regarding social media, right?
Yeah.
But it's just, I guess, the AI part of social media. But I wasn't quite clear on what Brainka was calling for. Are you talking about regulating that part of the AI development, or are you saying that you want to just see more of that as part of the model release process from the big AI providers?
Yes, model release process.
Got it. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? We have one here.
I've
Probably
got
one
this.
there. I don't know. You could go start from here. Oh, good. We'll come to you.
I'd like to open this question up to all the panellists. Has there been any instance where an AI has been deployed or an application or system internally or externally to a client, for instance, and it hasn't gone well or something didn't happen the way that you expected, and were you able to work that out?
Probably that happens always, but
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, I think I can get started with that. So at Uplift as well, we aim to introduce features, functionalities that revolves around AI, but we haven't been able to reach to that point where we can take things to production yet. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of ideas and double checking the training data, a lot of time and effort to just roll things out, because we are at the position where, because some competitors are doing, we could do that, but we don't want to break the trust we have with our existing customers. So that's like one of the reason why we are happy to spend the next 6 months more to revisit things from different perspective, making sure whatever we are delivering doesn't have any bad impact at all.
For me, as I gave previous example, is we have a data set and the LLM helping a customer to answer a question, say give an instruction that never existed before, or give a button in our product that never existed before. So that's definitely a problem that we try to solve, and as well as people try to jailbreak the prompts and try to ask something that's probably not ethical, and customer do report to us, say, by having this prompt, it somehow escaped our kind of content moderation process. So we got feedback from customers, and we also have a dedicated responsible AI team within Atlassian to addressing those problems and keep building, enhancing our content moderation so that we have a collective data set that's understand what not good looks like, and we keep refining these content moderations to make sure we actually, when we provide response to customers, is actually don't meet customer requirements and don't provide harmful or biased opinions.
That's very good answers from both of the panels. And in my opinion, I think using application in production would take a little bit longer time for testing and experimenting any edge cases. And in my opinion, I think if an organization has a legal team or any part of the team that can collaborate with a developer who is developing the solutions together to design the safeguard, and it can be also very helpful. And also having human in the loop to test the result and bring it back to the iteration of the implementation of the application is also helpful to build trust in a long term before we feel the application can build really good trust in the production.
Sorry, before the next question, I just wanted to check and verify, probably with Shane. Is it because like the output of the LLM is non-deterministic, that's the issue, or is it something else?
Yeah, I think the part you're saying it's try to jailbreak. Yeah, I think it's sometimes LLM in nature is very hard to predict, like the outputs, especially if you're familiar with LLM. There's a parameter called temperature, which you can set how creative your LLM to become, right? It can be very deterministic. It's between 0 and 1, but sometimes it can be set it very creative. And when they become creative, sometimes the content becomes very hard to control. Okay. And even with that, you need to make sure it also aligns with our company values. Yeah. And also,
Okay, so basically the non-deterministic part also plays a role. Next question, please. Probably there.
Hi. So the problem of hallucination, is it ever gonna go away, or are we gonna have to stick with it, more or less? Is there any way to make the model like doubt itself enough, like doubt and redoubt itself to see if it's giving the right answer?
Yeah, I think both we have, I don't know, from data science perspective, you have a way that you can address hallucination, like for the RAG system, which is built specific for information retrieval system. You can try to reduce, minimize hallucination and give instructions, say, if it's not in those contents, please say, I don't know. But I believe in the future when the LLM becomes much, much smarter. Imagine now we just have 5 years now for LLM become this stage. Imagine another 5 years, maybe LLM won't have the hallucination problem in the future. But at least in the short term, we try to build solution that try to minimizing the hallucination problem. But I believe in the long term, it'll probably all get resolved by having just a powerful LLM.
Anyone wants to add any more on that?
Pretty much answers.
Yeah. Then can I take the next question?
Yes.
Hi everyone, thank you for the talk. I remember the driving analogy that you gave, Shane, just on how drivers, even though they're driving cars, they're sort of responsible for driving it properly. I was just wondering if for people, like say individuals, clients, and then the developers of these AI models, what level of licenses should they have or could they have? Like for example, for driving, we have driver's licenses for the general public, and then even like age limitations and maybe for people who are older, they have got, you know, like testing requirements. Should those sorts of licenses be applied for companies or individuals in the future?
Yeah, I think the Europe already have this AI kind of laws first established. I think sometime in the future, maybe next few years, Australia will probably have similar standards that companies should follow. So now it's at very early stages of this. So it's kind of very hard to know in the next 5-10 years what will happen. So I think governments is trying to figure out what regulations we should apply. It's almost, just to try to, I think the whole intention is make sure we have trust in any content we publish on internet without having regulations say, let's say in the worst case scenario, someone just creates fake news, fake articles 24/7, right? Then you can just publish on internet. And that can be very harmful in the future because an LLM learns from articles. Maybe in the future LLM, it learns those fake news and fake articles and fake concepts into their models. And it's very hard to detect those once it's trained. So I think, it's hard to know, but in the future, I definitely think it is required because otherwise future models will train on fake data, fake news. It will probably cause more harm.
I think, it's quite an interesting thought that you have around, similar to how there's test for getting a license, similar to that, if we could have some kind of certification before someone can build or work with AI. But I think I don't really think that will be implemented ever.
Levels of licenses?
because we are in like technology era, people are building whatever they want to build. No matter if you like certain product or not, you have the right to create things, right? So in that case, it is tough, but then there could be from like international level, there could be some, not in the developer's hand, but in whoever owns the LLM, there should be some kind of regulations for them more than the people creating or developing things.
Yeah, just to add on it, I don't know if it was a country or probably the EU. I think they even had a regulation on the number of parameters. So if you go above, I don't know, 2 billion parameters, then you need to do this. If you are under this, then it's considered a pet project or a side project, and you still can do it. I think I heard it in Practical AI somewhere, but I guess they are doing things like that as well, even from a regulation point of view, like the levels that you're talking about. So I think that's already being done. Maybe I can take another one.
I got one. So it's kind of a two-part question. Shane, you mentioned a little bit about people jailbreaking LLMs.
Yes.
What measures can we do as people that host our own LLMs to sort of try to prevent that? And the second question is, what are some ways to, well, some LLMs have a context to some database or at least some information. What's stopping someone from jailbreaking that LLM and gaining, unauthorized access to whatever context, that LLM has?
Yeah, I think the previous talk, the Oscar talk, I think definitely try that. Responsible AI toolkit, it sounds really great. So maybe give it a go to see if it works. I think overall, it's as another analogy, it's more like an airport. You go to overseas, you have different type of security checks, right? You have custom, you check your passport, make sure you have onboarding tickets. It's similar for LLMs. When someone sends a text, before it roll out to the production model, it needs to go through several security gates. One could be a separate model, just like a security gate saying, is this actually a prompt injection, right? It's a yes or no. Or maybe there's another one, is it try to change your database or stealing data from your databases. So you can build a small kind of models or check gates to make sure it doesn't cause those problems before you send the user prompts to your final LLM models, which has much control and much powerful control. But also the second part is make sure you have least privilege for your LLM models, because you can set an LLM model to delete everything on your server, or you can just say make it as a read-only or something. So make sure you only give the LLM the permission they need to have. Don't give them the admin's permission on your server.
This privilege. Yeah. If I've seen many hands, so probably I'll go on. Probably one thing for you. I think OWASP has also released something, because OWASP generally, they have a top 10 security vulnerabilities for web applications. As far as I remember, that fact can be rechecked, but I think they have also released like a OWASP list for LLMs, and that might be helpful because like OWASP does things in security, so they would know what's happening there. So probably that might be a reference I can give you. Given I've seen many hands, so I'll not take another opinion on it. Can I probably get another question?
Yeah, my question is a follow-up question from the previous one, when you talked about we have to filter out which content is AI generated and which one is not. But as the LLMs are advancing, they are generating content more humanly. In that case, what are the challenges of detecting whether that content generated is AI or not? And what accuracy can we receive around that? And also adding up on that, if in that case, what aspect do we check for whether that content is AI generated or not? So this is my question.
Yeah. I think it's LLMs definitely getting smarter to generate content. What I can think of is probably from modeling perspective, you can build something like GAN, which is generative adversarial network, which is you have two models. One is always generate content and information. The other model is assess whether that's actually AI generated or not. And you have this model competing with each other. One is always generate AI content plus mixed with human response content versus a model that always detects yes or no. So over time, it learns from each other, and I think over time, both models will getting smarter. Your model will get smarter of generating content that looks like human. On the other hand, you'll have another. We got discriminator in the game is another model also getting smarter to detect whether is generated by human or LLM. So I think it will become a kind of continued competitions between the two models.
Yeah, you need a blue team and a red team even for LLMs, like security.
Yeah, I think the concept of multiple agents running for a use case is a good example for this.
Yeah, thank you.
Next one, probably.
Thank you for the talk. It may be a fictitious type of kind of like a joining fiction and AI. I think everybody knows about Agent 47 type of movie. So will there be any AI that's a combination of all of it, maybe superior to any AI that has been generated, or like plus of every AI?
So you're hinting towards like a, how do I put it, AGI kind of a thing?
If AI can be evil,
AGI, yeah.
destroy the world, is that
No,
what you think?
no, not that one. But like kind of like an AI that's a combination of all of it, like kind of like a god, maybe god of AI. It's just a hint. But like, will it be possible in the future? Like,
Yeah, anyone wants to take it? I don't know, probably like a AGI level 2 or something like that.
Yeah, I can start. I actually watched a recent interview about Jeff Hinton, who's kind of win the recent Nobel Prize of Physics, and he's kind of the godfather of AI, who generated neural networks. And what he says is, in the next actually 5 to 20 years, it's probably likely have a high chance that AI will have a human level or passing human level intelligence. So sometime in this stage, it's definitely possible to have AI that's smarter than humans. So and also like Elon Musk also addressed the concern having super smart computers, right? So that's why we have this talk about responsible AIs. We need to have those rules and controls in place, or at least people start to think about the safety of the AIs, rather than it's being too late afterwards. Then it can cause tremendous harm. Yeah.
Thank you.
Probably take the next one.
Got one question here.
Yeah, there's one on the side. Yeah, there. I think so. Yeah, there.
Hi, thank you for the talk. Going back to the filters, how can you make sure that you're not restricting your capability of the AI by having filters? So what can you do to make sure you're not limiting the capacity of the AI? Thank you.
I think it also depends on the use case, what kind of AI application you're trying to build. For an example, what's Shane's team, they are working on Rovo, which basically reads your Confluence, and there's a chatbot that you can interact with. So in that case, I feel like the AI doesn't need to be very creative, right? But if you look at a use case where you're generating images, where you ask a prompt and it doesn't have to be a human image, but the AI thinks about something similar to human and it comes up with thousands of different ideas. So it depends on what kind of use case that you want to opt for, and based on that, the level of content filtering, any kind of safeguarding would be around that. I think, yeah, Shane, you can add more.
Yeah. I think in general, I feel like AI need to understand whether we're talking about historical facts or you want to talk about something creative in the future, because that require different level of filterings and controls. If it's about histories, you need to be accurate, right? Whether there's probably by current standards, it's not acceptable, but that's actually in the history. So when people ask about historical questions, you need to be accurate rather than to be gender equal or or racial equal, right? In the past, it may not, but that's the history we want to understand and learn from. So when about histories, it's different level of filtering when you talk about the current stages. So yeah, it's like a use case, but also AI need to distinguish whether it's talk about in the past or about the creative future, or it's talk about the current stages.
Makes sense. Jean, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think it's also important to understand what we want the AI play as a role. Like if the task that we want the AI to do is to summarize article, or if what we want is to retrieve some document to find references, or if we want the AI to do some creative type of task like generating content target to a specific marketing audience group. Yep. So in different cases, and for being able to understand the background, to be able to understand the role of the AI will be helpful for the developer to adjust the temperature of the model,
yep,
and to understand the level of the guardrail that we need to implement there. So in some cases, like what we mentioned before, like if we want to do it like summarizing articles, and maybe the model doesn't need to be very creative, and we can provide more source data to say, okay, this summarizes from where, or yeah, to give more information about that. But if we say, okay, we want to generate marketing content, and in this case, we will probably want our model to be more creative, but on top of that, we also need to be careful related to potential bias and all the other things as a filter to build on top of it. So in this case, the design of the filter can be different based on the different use case.
Makes sense. Like how I see it is, yeah, if you put a lock on a door, it's also going to block people who should be getting in. So it's about who you give the key to and what the room is about. Probably that makes a good analogy. I guess we could take another one. Yeah. Oh, sorry. We'll get someone to you.
First, I would like to thank our panelists for the really insightful answers, and I really learned a lot from you guys. From the general impression I got from your answers that you guys are generally somewhat cautiously optimistic about the future of artificial intelligence. So I would like to ask if there's any particular fields or instances that you think the use of AI or LLM should be off limits.
Sorry, the question was...
I didn't catch the question well.
Is there any instances where you think the use of artificial intelligence should be off limit, or do you think there is enough robust framework that we could use AI in the future?
Oh, so places where AI should not be used is what you're saying?
Yeah, is there any example you can think of where AI should not be used?
Okay, that's the question. Okay, yeah. If I could answer, probably healthcare. I would not believe on an AI to do a surgery on me at this point, but I don't know. I'll let other people speak.
I can't think of anywhere it shouldn't be used, as long as it's used responsibly.
Yeah, one survey I remember was, I don't know which company, they actually, I think, developed a pilot. So statistically, it could fly the plane a lot better than any human pilot. But when they surveyed the people, a vast majority of the people said, no, I'm never gonna take a flight which would be flown by an AI. So I think it's more of not only what can be done, but also the context. As I said, I would not be on a plane that would be flown by a pilot. So I think it's a very contextual thing. Mm-hmm. As I said, I would not like my surgery to be done by a AI, even though it might have the experience of 10 amazing surgeons. So I guess it's also about the context on where it's applied. But from a technical point of view, I didn't see any areas that it should not be or would not be applied. But I probably give you a couple of examples where I would not like it to be applied. And that's where probably things like regulations also come in. So you'd not want an AI to be a virtual doctor and then just give you whatever medicine prescriptions you'd like any other day. Because, yeah, as far as I understand, an LLM won't have a brain. So, for example, it might repeat the same antibiotics for 4 weeks, which is not allowed, right? But for the LLM, the goal might be to get the disease eradicated. I guess it's a very subjective, relative question from my point of view, but I don't know if anyone wants to add anything.
Yeah, I think it's also important to build transparency and build different options. Like, for example, I think from technical point of view, AI can do many things, mm-hmm. but sometimes as human, we also prefer to have option like certain things that created by humans. So mm-hmm. to be able to have both options is also I think it's also very helpful.
Makes sense.
Like the end user can make a decision on which one that they prefer. Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah, it can touch like each of the industry that's there. It can become a part of it, but not completely replace it.
Yeah, something that I think people would not be very, how do I put it, like open to being used. For example, there are mental health consultations. So an AI could actually be trained to be an amazing mental health consultant. But as I said, as it could potentially hallucinate, it could give you wrong suggestions depending upon what your mental health state is. So I guess, yeah, it's a very relative area, at least in my opinion, from what I understand.
Hi, thanks for your answer. Like, it's really insightful. I remember an article, a story I read from the other day, like about the New York Times. Apparently, they've been researching the usage of LLMs in generating their headlines. So they immediately got a lot of pushbacks.
Okay.
So can you ever think of a future where we will be consuming media generated by AI?
Shall I go? I was listening to a recent podcast, and basically, it's a startup. They actually use Google Cloud, and the founder said, I think it was 3 to 5 years, 90% of the pixels you see on screen will be AI generated. He was that confident, right? So I don't know the timeline, but I think it's already there. We already see AI generated content which is very human-like. That has already been a point of discussion multiple times. But yeah, if New York Times is using it, probably they are one of the few companies that are actually saying that they're doing it. Many others might be just doing it, and I don't know, like 30-40% of the headlines I read today might be AI generated. I don't know. Would like to hear this.
Yeah, I think AI generated. I think it was kind of an assistant to make your work more efficient. That's why I can see it. Like as a data scientist, I use AI to help me generate codes. But ultimately, you hold accountable as a data scientist is whatever LLM that generates, you are the person who is responsible for the outputs. When you present to the business, you can't blame the LLM that gave you the wrong code. You need to be responsible to review the code, make sure you actually generate the right insight on the models. Similar to content generations. If LLM generate contents, the editors or authors need to hold accountable to make sure whatever they generate is true. So I think that's more important, is make sure that the user of the LLM hold accountable for whatever LLM that's generated. If LLM generates a news article that's actually reflect the truth, help the audience understand the story better, why not? As long as it reflects the truth, right?
Yeah.
Has anyone been thinking about personal private AIs and the scenario where us as individuals get to have our own AI and the implications, ethical implications where people can't afford, certain models? So for instance, top tier people who can afford personal, really good AI models might be able to get advantages that people that just don't have that access or money or for whatever reason, have anyone been thinking about that?
Yeah, do you want to go?
From developers' perspective, Olama, there are certain tools. There's a tool called Olama that allows you to locally connect with different types of LLMs without even paying for them to a certain limit. There's a limit. But from end user consumer perspective, I think all we have for now is the free version of all these tools that's there in the market. And for ordinary person to create an LLM, it takes a lot of cost, energy, everything. So I'm not sure that's gonna be readily available for everyone to use.
Yeah, sorry to interject. I remember Oscar's talk here 3 months back. So he basically ran Gemma over LLM, over Olama. So I guess how I would see it is I basically separate it into two major things. One is training and one is inference. Inference is when you ask and then it answers. Training is the costliest part, I assume.
Yes.
From some places that I read, if you just go in and create a general LLM you're talking somewhere numbers around $1 million, a proper LLM being trained. So now even in the inference part, how I would break it down is, are you just using a service? For example, Gemini is a service. It's an API, I call it, it gives you Mac. Or are you hosting it by yourself or using some open source LLM to do that in that inference? It's called inference. Yes. I'd probably see it in that way. Yeah, about the training, I don't know. I'm not a data scientist. Probably these guys know much better. But yes, that would be how I would see it in terms of cost.
Yeah, I think for LLM model, there's generally just two categories. One is open sourced ones that everyone can download and access, that versus a private model like OpenAI models that's private. So I think the open source way of LLM can really help kind of democratize the LLM usages, because everyone can benefit from that. You can download it and use it. So versus a private model. So I think both type of models is required to really help everyone to use it. If you really need a very special ones, maybe you use OpenAI, really powerful ones. But if you for personal users, maybe it's a simple open source LLM model. You know, you can download it on your MacBook or your PC and run it locally. And it also generates insight information. And I believe with advancements in both streams, I think it will reach some state. It will still help probably solve 90% of the problem that OpenAI model can do.
Yeah, in the interest of time, I think we'll take the last question. We just have 4 minutes left. So probably the last question.
Do we have any more questions?
The last one, and then we're done.
So far we've been talking about everything to do with responsible AI, but no one's mentioned the environmental impact of this. So to actually train the models, but also host the resultant chat bots or what have you, these data centers, the materials they use, but the cooling, the heat they produce, and the energy they use.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on some of this, and whether we should be using some of these models and things for, seemingly mundane tasks that probably don't have the value there for some of these things?
Yep.
I think in my last talk, I did kind of touch on model evaluation. So before even starting on a project, before even building any AI platform, it's so important to evaluate what kind of model fits for your use case. You don't necessarily need to connect with a large language model if your use case is already available in a small language model, which is not that harmful to the environment compared to the large language model. So I think there needs to be more education around model evaluation before everyone jumping into the use of large language model. But yeah, I think that's such a good question, and it needs to be addressed and communicated more.
It's a very good question. I also think with a very good understanding of the use case, we can limit it, like the time of having the model on. So for example, if we don't need the model at night, we can turn it off to save some energy. And also, as a data scientist, when we need to build the filter on top of our model for the safeguard drill, or if we need to fine-tuning the model, we can also limit it, the resources that we are using. For example, if I don't know if any technical audience knows, like we have LoRa, like when we fine-tuning the model, we don't need to fine-tune all the parameter, that we can really be very selective with the parameter that we want to test on. And in that case, as a data scientist, we also can play our part to be more cautious about our environment.
And also from data scientist perspective, there's a technique called distill. What it does is from the large language model, it learns a specific content and it could get trained or pass that knowledge to a smaller model. So smaller model means it's more efficient, but the outcome, the accuracy of the model, it will be very similar to the large model. So instead of using the large model to do all the hard works, you can pass down to a smaller model to solve a specific problems. So that will make things not only faster on the user perspective, but also use less energy and resources. And also in the future, I don't think always a bigger model solves our problems. Maybe in the future, the neural network structure gets much smarter and faster. You actually have a smaller model can solve the same amount of problem that we're having now.
Yeah, I think that's a similar example of sorry.
Yeah.
That's a similar example of Gemini Pro and Gemini Flash. Go ahead.
Yes, yeah, based on my experience as well, training a model, all the expense that it takes, it's easier to get accuracy working with small language model compared to large language model. So from cost perspective as well, and the time and effort you need to invest in getting the accurate result, in that case, it's pretty convenient to start with a small language model.
Yeah, if I look at the root of the problem, I don't know how safe it is, but I guess there are university projects and stuff where they are using small, I think it's called nano nuclear reactor to get these things done. As I said, I don't know how safe it is or how clean it is or what actually happens in the back. I think I read an article where it said the big three clouds use more electricity than Uzbekistan or something like that. So yeah, I think if I go to the root of the problem, I would say probably they are experimenting some nuclear solution to get energy to run these kinds of models. But as I said, it's just things I have read here and there. We are just over time. I think we should wrap it up here. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.